welcome all of you to this event. Before we begin, we will first have an invocation by Sneha.
सुबोधा विश्वमनोज्ञा ललिता हृद्या रमणीया अमृतवाणी संस्कृतभाषा नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना कवि कोकिल वाल्मीकि विरचिता रामायण रमणीय कथा अतीव सरला मधुरा मंजुला नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना व्यास विरचिता गणेश लिखिता महाभारते दिव्यकथा कौरव पांडव संग्रामथिता नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना कुरुक्षेत्र समरांगण गीता विश्ववंदिता भगवद गीता अमृत मधुरा कर्म दीपिका नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना कवि कुलगुरु नवरसोन्मेषजा ऋतुरघुकुमार कविता विक्रम शाकुन्तल मालविका नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना नैव क्लिष्टा न च कठिना.
विघ्नेश्वराय वरदाय सुरप्रियाय लम्बोदराय सकलाय जगद्धिताय नागाननाय श्रुतियज्ञविभूषिताय गौरीसुताय गणनाथ नमो नमस्ते. सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामः सिद्धिर्भवतु नः सदा. हयग्रीव हयग्रीव हयग्रीवेति यो वदेत् तस्य निस्सरते वाणी जह्नुकन्या प्रवाहवत्. बुद्धिर्बलं यशोधैर्यं निर्भयत्वमरोगताम् अजाड्यं वाक्पटुत्वं च हनूमत्स्मरणात् भवेत्. रत्नाकराधौतपदां हिमालयकिरीटिनीं ब्रह्मराजर्षिरत्नाढ्यां वन्दे भारतमातरम्. गुरुरेव गतिः गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे. न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोः मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो. Ram Ram Ram. A very happy morning to all of you and welcome to this event. Even before I begin with the topic and why we have assembled here, There is a saying in Panchatantra which says, Kritaghne nasti nishkritihi. There is no upliftment or there is no welfare for a person who is ungrateful. So firstly, I would like to present my gratitude to the people who are responsible for today's events. First and foremost, I always look up to my guru, Srimati Arantarakshmi Natarajan. She has been a guiding light for me. She is the Acharya, she is the guru from whom I learned everything related to Sanskrit, and whatever little I can present today is just because of her grace. She made it her life motto to uplift and nourish Samskrita, Samskriti and Samskara, and this she did through an organization called Gita Govinda Samskritha Sangha in Bengaluru, and I was part of that organization, and not just in Sanskritam but in every aspect of my life she has helped me and guided me. So my first and foremost salutations to her. Secondly, Sneha, she actually in a very short time, I just told her probably a week or two ago that I'm conducting this event and can you sing a song? She immediately agreed, so my gratitude to her. And again, the audience who are here who have made this an event and not just discourse from one side. To all of you, thank you for being here today. So again, my gratitude to all of you. A little bit about me, nothing much to say here. Mama Nama Vidyadhara. I am Vidyadhara. I am a PhD student in the mechanical department. I started learning Sanskritam from a young age of 5, and it's been like around 23 years that I am learning Sanskritam. I have been part of Gita Govinda Samskritha Sangha, where I have learned and also taught Sanskritam for around 8 years during and after my undergrad studies. Completed around 12 exams in Sanskritam conducted by various organizations in India. I enjoy reading Itihasas like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and I would say what interests me more are those small details that people don't usually read, those minute details and events that I come across is what interests me, which is not that well known. Most of us have read Ramayana and Mahabharata, but some things that is not very common. That's what interests me. And to be frank, most of the talk today will be on something that people don't know much about. So those things are what I'll touch upon today. I have conducted events, mainly mythology and history-based quizzes in Bengaluru, inter-school quizzes. I have directed and enacted Sanskritam, like Natakas in Sanskritam during my school and college times. So that's just a small introduction about me. Coming to the point, why are we here today? 19th August, that is Monday, is Shravana Shukla Purnima. This is a very interesting day because usually on a day you have 2 or 3 events or occasions that you have. But this particular day, you have multiple events. You have Gayatri Jayanti, you have Raksha Bandhana, Rigupa Karma and Yejurupa Karma surprisingly have come on the same day this time. Hayagriva Jayanti, and most importantly, the reason we are here today, Samskritha Dinam. So, the previous Purnima, that is the Purnima before this 19th of August, was also a very memorable one and interesting one. It was Guru Purnima, which is the day when we offer our salutations to our gurus and seek their blessings. So this Purnima, Shravana Shukla Purnima, is celebrated as Samskritha Jayanti as well. Going through some, doing some basic search, I came to know that I initially thought that Samskritha Dinam was a very recent development that people started to take initiative in. But a web search told me that the first Samskritha Dinam was celebrated in 1969, and it's been continuing to be celebrated. While, again, it's two sides of the argument. One, it's good that we are taking the initiative to remember this language. But the second thing is, unfortunately, rather than being a day-to-day communication language, it has become a language that you remember on a day, and next day you move forward. But still, a very good day to remember and talk about this wonderful language. Just again, the initial few minutes will be a little bit of statistical data and a lot of information, but after that we'll go to something more interesting that hopefully that you may enjoy. There are around 7,000 living languages in the world, out of which one language dies every 40 days. Again, most of these languages are dialects or indigenous languages that through the generations don't carry forward to the next generation. So one language, according to the online sites, one language dies every 40 days. Bharata, India, has around 450 of these established languages. And surprisingly, out of the 30 national languages, native languages that have the most speakers worldwide, 7 of those 30 languages are Indian languages. Do you have any guesses of what those languages could be?
Marathi.
Marathi, okay. Hindi. Tamil.
Bengali.
Bengali, okay. I have 4. Any other?
Kannada.
Kannada, okay. So these, yeah. Most of the guesses were right. Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, and Bhojpuri. So these are those 7 languages among the top 30 languages that have the most number of speakers, native speakers worldwide. But something interesting about the language that we are here to talk about today, Sanskritam. Again, Sanskrit is what it's usually called, but today I'm making an effort to reduce the usage of the word Sanskrit and more often use Sanskritam, which is a better way and the right way to say it. An interesting thing is, it is the official language of 2 states, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. At least on the official records, that is what it says. I'm not sure what are the steps being taken to continue to promote it. One more interesting thing is, South Africa has recognized it as a protected language, and this phrase taken from South Africa's constitution clearly mentions that they are to promote and ensure that Sanskritam continues to be preserved, because it is one of the religious languages, like one of the languages that they use for religious purposes as well. So that is an interesting thing that I came across about Sanskritam. Again, like any other language, there are several sophisticated grammatical texts, there are beautiful poetry, and there are contributions in different fields like mathematics, science, politics, architecture, all these things. There are some contributions or the other from Sanskritam as well. But here's the thing. I told that Sanskritam is not one of the most spoken languages, but still Sanskritam has continued to survive and thrive, to be frank, all over the world. Nearly every other person might know that there is a language called Sanskritam, though they may not know how to speak. Here is a simple Google trend search that I did for 2 search terms. One is Ramayana, the other one is Mahabharata. And this is like a 5-year trend of these 2 search terms. As you can see, there are certain peaks, and based on when those peaks came up, I have a few things to say. During COVID, that was the peak, because that is when people started going back and seeing Ramayana and Mahabharata, because they were retelecasted again on all televisions. So that was a major peak during the 5 years. Second set of peaks came during the Ram Mandir event, when it was proposed, and then again when it was actually inaugurated. And the last one is a very interesting one. It is the movie Kalki 2898. So Mahabharata actually took a peek there, because it is based on Mahabharata for people who have already seen it. For people who have not, you can watch it again. But so the reason, okay, I was talking about a language called Sanskritam. But now I'm showing you some random details about Mahabharata and Ramayana. What is the interconnection between the two? Well, there is a shloka that is mentioned which tells Yavadasti Trayiloke Chaturmukha Mukhodbhava. Till the time that people of the world continue to chant, remember and recite the Vedas. Yavadva Ramacharitam Valmiki Kavichitritam. Till the point that the people remember and again retell the story of Ramayana that Valmiki said, or retell the stories of Mahabharata that Vyasa said, or read and enjoy the works of Kalidasa, be it Raghuvamsham, Kumarasambhavam, till that point, Tavadesha Devabhasha Devi Stasati Bhutale. So the poet finally concludes that till the point that people continue to revisit these works, till that time, Sanskritam will continue to thrive and exist in this world. So this is my contentment that if people are looking back at these works, then surely Sanskritam will continue to exist for a long time. So this is just a correlation that I brought out to tell that Sanskritam, though not a common language, is still something that we all, in one way or the other, are helping to preserve. Now, I spoke specifically about Sanskritam, but now I take a step back and speak about Bhasha, the language itself. The beauty of regional languages and some foreign languages like German, regional languages like Sanskritam, Kannada, and Hindi, you assign or you attribute inanimate and animate objects with a gender. So that is a very common thing that happens in Sanskritam as well, wherein every object, whether it is animate or inanimate, it is given a gender, Strilinga, Pullinga, or Napumsakalinga. Bhasha is a Strilinga pada. It is a feminine, it is given a feminine attribute. The reason being, Sanskritam, the words are chosen very thoughtfully. A feminine attribute is given because it has the ability to nurture. Civilization thrives because of multiple things. One is the river, one is the people, and finally it's also the language. And if you see, even rivers, Ganga, Kaveri, Narmada, all of them are again given female attributes because they are the sources of nourishment and nurture that continues a civilization forward. In a similar way, Bhasha is also given a feminine attribute to tell that that is what nourishes the civilization and takes it forward. A very beautiful thing that I came across and wanted to share, and similarly even Bharata Mata in Bharata, India, is also given a female attribute. So this is one interesting aspect of Sanskritam, wherein firstly it attributes gender, and the gender has meaning in the reason of why it is assigned. The second important thing is etymology, that is how the words are assigned and what is like the derivative, how it is derived. That is a very beautiful thing that Sanskritam does. Again, may not be every word, but most of the words, if you go back, you can find some sort of a source of why that name came to be assigned to that particular object. For this case, Samskritam, Samyak Kritam Sanskritam. One that is well done is Sanskritam. The reason behind it being, the grammatical rules are very precise. There are no silent letters. Whatever you write is whatever you read. Whatever you hear is whatever you write. So there is no silent letters. And compared to English, which has rules amidst exceptions, in Sanskritam you have very well defined exceptions amidst rules. So that is the reason Sanskritam is named Sanskritam, because it is very well done. On the other hand, a more common language that was spoken back in the day was Prakrit. And the etymology for Prakrit is Prakritikam Prakriti, one that is natural. It was a very common language. It was a language spoken by the common people. Sanskritam was more of a scholarly language where if you go to a Gurukula and learn, there you learn Sanskritam. Whereas if you are a common person and you're interacting on a day-to-day basis for your trade, commerce, any of those aspects, the common language that was used was Prakrit. And it is from Prakrit that it went into Awadhi, and Awadhi became Hindi, and all the languages that you see today, some of them are derived from Prakritam, which are more common languages like Hindi, Marathi, Awadhi, Bhojpuri, all those are derived from Prakritam. Whereas specific languages like Kannada, Tamil, all those arise from Sanskrit. So this is another beautiful thing about Sanskritam. And we can come back to this as and when necessary to understand why a particular text or word was given that particular name. Again, me praising Sanskritam is like, in Raghuvamsham Kalidasa says, Kwasturya Vamsha Prabhavo Kwashalpa Vishaya Marihi Titirshubhu Dustaram Mohat Udupe Nasi Sagaram. He tells, Raghuvamsham is a word that describes the great kingdom or the great empire of Raghuvamsha, where Rama also was born. He tells that Raghuvamsha is a very great empire. Me, a simple man, trying to describe the greatness of Raghuvamsha is like a person who aims to cross the 7 seas on a small piece of wooden plank. So when Kalidasa, a great poet himself, is so humble that he considers himself to be not adept to describe Raghuvamsha, me praising Sanskritam is of no use. So I'll take a few lines from various texts which praise Sanskritam. First one is a very common phrase that most of us would have heard. Bhasha su madhura mukhya divya girvana bharati. So this phrase tells that Sanskritam is that language that is Bhasha, so among all languages, madhura, it is very melodious. Mukhya, prominent one. Divya girvana bharati. It is a very it is even the language spoken by the gods, and it's a very divine language. So this is one of the praises given to Sanskritam. The second praise that is given is Samskriti, Samskritashrita. Culture, that is Sanskriti, is dependent on Sanskritam. Whatever culture we follow, this line says that is directly or indirectly related to the language of Sanskritam itself. So that is one of the beautiful aspects of Sanskritam that I came across and shared it. So, out of the audience here, how many of you have at some point learned Sanskritam for academics, for school, or personal practice? 1, 2, 3. Okay, most of us, some people don't want to raise their hands, but okay. Okay, so this was mainly like if there were people in the audience who were not aware of or who had not learned Sanskritam. Whenever you want to learn a new language, it's the first thing that you learn is to tell your name. So this was a small activity that I wanted to include for people who have not had the opportunity to learn Sanskritam. Again, this won't be an intensive course. It was just a means for you to again start or take a stepping stone into Sanskritam. So this activity will be to tell a way to tell that your name is this so and so. So just again for the people who already know, it will just be a revision. But for people who don't know, I hope you can learn something from it. So it will be an activity. I'm happy if you will engage in it. So if you want to say my name is Mama Nama, and you add your name. So Mama Nama Vidyadhara, and you can tell the same thing. So that is how you say my name is. If anyone wants to try, they can. Kush, I think you were the one who.
Mama Nama Kush.
Very good. So now that you know how to tell your name, the other thing is to ask someone else their name. So Tava Nama Kim. So Mama Nama Vidyadhara, Tava Nama Kim. Mama Nama Vidyadhara, Tava Nama Kim.
Kush.
You can use the full sentence.
Okay. So Mama Nama Kush, Tava Nama Kim.
You can ask someone else, yeah.
Tava Nama Kim.
Mama Nama Chintan, Tava Nama Kim.
Mama Nama Amit, Tava Nama Kim.
Mama Nama Adityaha, Tava Nama Kim.
Mama Nama Manu, Tava Nama Kim.
Mama Nama Saranya, Tava Nama Kim.
Mama Nama Aishwarya, Tava Nama Kim. Mama Nama Sneha.
You can ask me and I can include it here. Okay, so this is just again activity to either bring back whatever you've forgotten, or if it's something new to learn for you. So again, I have some activities in the middle here and there so that I don't bore you from the words that I am just speaking. So again, the way I've taken the next set of the next part of the presentation is interesting things that I found in Sanskritam that I wanted to present, and also compare it with what the other languages have to offer. So our entire education system back then was based on hearing, memorizing, and repeating. There was no concept of writing. So when that is the case, it was the duty or the responsibility of the guru to make sure that he teaches the students in a way that they can remember it easily. If it's a very verbose thing that the guru teaches, it will become difficult for the student to remember the huge statement that the guru told. So mnemonics is a concept wherein you use some cues to remember something bigger. So that is what most of our works also present in Sanskritam. So they are called Sutrani in Sanskritam. To give you a few examples for mnemonics, a very famous one is BODMAS, which will tell you the order of operations in an equation. The second one is Vidyadhara, to remember the colors in the rainbow. And how many of you wish you could calculate pi to some order? This will give you the exact one. How I wish I could calculate pi. The number of letters is the pi value, so 3.141592. So it's a very interesting way to remember how I could, if I want to calculate pi, very easy to remember around 6 digits after the decimal point. So these are mnemonics which we come across very usually in our day-to-day academics. The second type of mnemonics is equations. If rather than telling, for example, the last equation is gravity, the influence of gravity, wherein rather than telling that the force between two objects of mass m1 and m2 separated by a distance r is something multiplied by a constant. If you remember that equation, you can always elaborate on that equation later on. So these equations also are very concise, and remembering them can help you again trace back and tell what that equation means. So these are some of the things that we use on a day-to-day basis to make our understanding easier and remember things better. Now, there are certain linguistic equations that we come across in Sanskritam as well. I'll talk about a concept called Sandhi. Again, I won't go into the details, it may be too technical, but Sandhi is essentially just joining of two words. In English, that will become that will. Would, not, wouldn't, all those are joining of two words. The same thing when you do it in a regional language, it becomes something called Sandhi. And these exist not just in Sanskritam, but they're seen in several other Asian languages, and these are some of the languages like Sanskritam, Tamil, Kannada. All these use, directly or indirectly, knowingly or unknowingly, they somehow use Sandhi. Rather than telling Krishna Ashtami is what you say. That is essentially joining of two words using some sort of a Sandhi. Again, the next few slides will be slightly technical, but I'll try to give you an overview rather than going into the details of it. I think some of you in your regional languages also would have come across something called Savranidika Sandhi, which is, there are a few rules that you have to follow. Like if these two letters join, you get another letter as a result of the Sandhi. So as you can see, there are 4 rules, but we can somehow concise that into one single line as this. So going from 4 equations, now we have come to one equation. But the problem is, this Sandhi does not just work on a and a, it also works on all these letters. So if there are like around 3 to 4 letters, you'll have 3 to 4 equations to remember, to just remember one Sandhi. So how do we go about making it more easy to remember? First, let us take a step back and let us look at the aksharas that are present in our Sanskritam. So these are the letters or aksharani that we know as they are taught even in Hindi or in your regional languages. You have something very similar to this. Again, if you have learned a little bit more about these, you know that the first, the red is swaras, the next part is vyanjanas. Then if you again do a little more, if you have studied a little more, you know that these 5 lines are called vargiya vyanjanas, these are called avargiya vyanjanas. And again, these are again more technical, but I'll just go into the details because I'll point this out now so that when I tell something about it later, you can just either remember that these words came up, or if you know these, you can remember it better. So these are some of the divisions that the letters are made into for different reasons. And the nasal letters, the last letters of all the 5 are called anunasika, vyanjanas. So these are some of the bifurcations that you come across in our letters. Now, then came this sage called Panini. Again, I didn't want people to read it as Panini, so I tried my best to put a mark there. It's Panini. So he is a sage who later came across, and there is a story that tells that rather than seeing the letters as we see in the ordered fashion, what he did was something different. He jumbled them up. So For people who have read Sanskritam, you know these. It's a very fun thing to say during your studies. So he jumbled all the letters that we saw so well organized in orderly fashion, and he gave around 14 rules or 14 individual lines. These are called Maheshwarasutrani. Now, why did he create chaos from order? Because he saw order in this chaos. For example, those became the swaras. If you see, again, there are certain rules which tell that the single letter indicates a and a. Similarly for e, u, r, and l. So, the way, even though it looks chaotic, those initial set of letters became known as, they represent the swaras. The next part represent the vyanjanas. And if you see, all the Vargiya vyanjanas, Avargiya vyanjanas, Mridu vyanjanas, Karkasha vyanjanas, and Anunasikas, the nasal. So all these have specific lines dedicated to them. So though it looks chaotic, there was some order that he found in arranging the letters in this way. And what finally happened was, we started with the problem that Savarna Dirgha Sandhi had a lot of rules to remember. But if you look back, what did we have to do? We had to do was, we had those letters on the left hand side that we wanted to use for the equation. And if you go back, all those occur in the first two lines. All the letters that we need for Savarna Dirgha Sandhi happen in the first two lines itself. So what he did was, he wrote the sutra called Akaha Savarne Dirgha. When these letters combine with the same, it becomes a longer letter. So it's a very, again, the reason why I told this was the sage found order in chaos and he concised 4 equations into one simple rule which is easier to remember. Again, you'll have to go through the Maheshwarasutrani to remember this, but this is how teaching became easier for the gurus, and this is how the students could remember it more easily. This is another, most of us have done all these aptitude tests to come here. You have written GRE, TOEFL, probably some other exams as well. So this is a common kind of question that we come across in these exams, wherein they give you a letter, they give you a word and they tell that, okay, this is coded as some other random gibberish. And if this is, if that is coded, Bharata is coded as that, what does this decode to? Does anyone want to try? Or does anyone find a pattern here?
+1 +2 +3 4.
Excellent. So if you write it next to each other, so there is that is the difference between the first letter and the coded letter. So if you do the same thing, if you use the same rule to decode that, you get bhasha. So the reason why I brought this up is, even though they are letters, we do numerical operations on those letters when we are given such a problem. So there is always some sort of equivalence between letters or alphabets and numbers, and that is called Sankhya Sambhavaha. So we always look at letters in the form of numbers, and that is not just in languages, but I'll first propose a problem where we might need something like this, and then I'll discuss more about it. All of us have heard at least about Paduka Sahasram. There is a shloka where Shiva tells, Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulya Rama Nama Varamane, where he is telling that if you chant Rama Nama 3 times, it is equivalent to chanting 1000 times. So if you concise it into an equation, it is a function of Rama and 3 to give you something of 1000. So this is the equation that this finally comes down to. But how do we solve this equation to get the right answer? As I told, numbers and letters there's an equivalence between letters and numbers, and ASCII values are one of those things that people use, wherein you assign a letter a number and characters also a number. A similar thing exists even in Sanskritam, and for sure it was way before something that ASCII came up with. It is called Katapayadi Sankhya. And now if you see Ra and Ma, which form the word Rama, it has the number 2 and number 5 respectively. Now let us go back to the equation that we had. So now you go from Rama, 3 to something like 2, 5, 3. And if you are given a left-hand side and a right-hand side and you are asked to do some operations to get the right-hand side, you can always do that. And so if you do the operations using the Katapayadi Sankhya, the equation is valid that Sri Rama Rama Rameti. If you chant Rama Rama thrice, it's equivalent to chanting it 1,000 times. So this Katapayadi Sankhya has been used in several other areas as well. For example, in the beginning, how I wish I could calculate pi is what we did to get around 5 or 6 digits of pi. Shankara Verma was a scholar who, in a work called Sadratna Mala, he writes this one line. And if you assign Katapayadi Sankhya's and if you read it backwards, it gives you, I don't know, probably like 15 digits of pi. Again, there are some blanks because if there is half a swara, half a vyanjana, it's not assigned any Katapayadi Sankhya, only full vyanjanas are assigned values. But if you do this, you get the entire value of pi for the around 15 digits, and it was proposed way back than what pi was calculated for. And again, the meaning also, like again, I've just taken one line where this Katapayadi Sankhya gives you the value of pi, but the meaning of this shloka also tells that if you divide the circumference by the diameter, it gives you pi. The shloka meaning also is the same. So it shows the caliber of those poets to convey the meaning and also give a value in the same verse. Now, again, this is a second activity that I wanted to engage people in, wherein numbers might be useful to use. So these are the numbers that are how you tell them in Sanskritam. Ekam, Dve, Trini, Chatvari, Pancha, Shat, Sapta, Ashta, Nava, Dasha, Ekadasha, Dvadasha. So these are the numbers from 1 to 12. But why did I just go till 12? The reason being I wanted to talk about time. The next thing that you can probably use Sanskritam is to tell the time. So this activity was to give you a means to tell time. So the way you tell it is Idani dash Vadaram, now dash o'clock. Now it is dash o'clock. So that is what is this sentence. So Idani means now, Vadanam is o'clock. So if you want to tell, okay, what's the time now? 11:30. Again, I won't go into the details of telling half, quarter, all those. Just the whole number is what I wanted to bring out. So if you want to tell the time now, it is, let us say it's 11 o'clock. How would you say that? So Idani Ekadasha Vadanam. So if you want to, I know program should have started at 10. Idani Dasha Vadanam. So this is just another activity that I wanted you to learn to tell the time. Because yeah, why not use it in a day-to-day basis, even those small phrases, to learn Sanskrit. Does anyone want to try another way, another number? What time did you get up? You can use that and tell it as well. Okay, Idani Panchavadam. Very good. So this is just a way to tell the time. Okay, so Prabhu Samhita is all those works that order Satyam, Vada, Dharmam, Chara, speak the truth, follow Dharma. All those which come in the Vedas, they are named as Prabhu Samhita. Suhrat Samhita is more like, it's like a friend, it advises you, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, all those they advise you. If you do the right thing, this will happen. If you don't do the right thing, this will happen. They give you examples and they advise you. Those are called Suhrat Samhita. And Kanta Samhita are more like, it's like a wife telling a husband, sugarcoating, the advice And that is what is called Kanta Samskritha, and that is where Kavya, literature, comes into play. So these are the categories that they divide everything that is available in Sanskritam as. But I won't go into the details of something that you commonly know. Itihasa, or history, is derived from itiha asa, one that has occurred, or so indeed it was. That is what is itihasa, like Ramayana and Mahabharata. They have happened and have been recorded in the same way, and that is what is called itihasa. Whereas on the other side is Puran, Pura api navam. They are low. They are mythology which is presented to us, and though they are way back, they are ancient, they are still contemporary and they are valid for even this day. So those are called Puran. Among the itihasas is the most famous, which is Ramayana, which most of us know. A few details about this. It is the first poem. So till this point, it was never written in the form of poetry. The first poem ever to be written was Ramayana, and it was composed by Valmiki, and he is called Adikavi. Some of the interesting things that come up when you read Ramayana and go into some details is the poets try to sprinkle some very unusual things in their entire work. And when you read it as a whole and when you listen to other people talk about it, you get these things. For example, in Ramayana, it seems as though the poet's favorite number is 7. The reason being, there are 7 kandas or 7 cantos in Ramayana. Among the Dashawataras, the 10 incarnations of Vishnu, Rama is the 7th avatar. If you do the Katapayadi Sankhya again for Rama, the Ra is 2 and Ma is 5, we get 7 again. And there is an interesting incident that happens in Ramayana, where when Sugriva befriends Rama and Rama agrees to kill Vali, Sugriva tells, show me your strength. I want to see if you are capable enough to kill Vali. So Rama is taken aback that he doubts me, but still he wanted to show that he is capable of doing the task. So what he does is he takes one arrow and he shoots it at a line of 7 shala trees. Shala is kind of a banyan tree, and he shoots one arrow and it pierces and splits all those 7 trees. And that is again another interesting thing. And if you read some other commentaries on the work, they tell that when Rama, so whenever a person, a warrior in these works, they use a weapon and they tell an instruction. For example, it's like a missile and you give the coordinates where it should go. So the missile is given an instruction, or the weapon is given an instruction of what it has to do. When Rama released his arrow, he told, destroy these 7. That is the only instruction he gave. It was very ambiguous because he in his mind thought, destroy these 7 trees, but the arrow did not know that. So what it did was, firstly it destroyed the 7 trees that were in front. Then it went all around the world searching for everything that was 7 in number. There are 7 seas, there are 7 rishis, Sapta rishis. So it started chasing all of them to kill them. So what happened is, the commentator beautifully tells that when it started to go and destroy the rivers, the oceans one of the oceans split itself into 2 and made it 8 oceans, so that the arrow does not come and hit it. The sages, when they realized what was happening, they called another sage and told, okay, you are also a Sapta rishi, you are a Ashtama rishi, come and sit with us. So they became 8 rishis, so the arrow did not hit them. So it went around the world, killing or destroying everything that was 7 in number, and finally came back to Rama. So a beautiful incident, where again, the poet Valmiki adds a concept of 7. The other important itihasa is Mahabharata. It is one of the biggest works. It has 1,25,000 shlokas. It is one of the biggest works, whereas Ramayana has 24,000 odd shlokas. This has 1,15,000 shlokas. And it is written by Vidyadhara. And Vyasa makes a very bold claim at the very beginning of this work. He tells, Yadi hasti tadanyatra jenne hatna tat kvachita. Whatever is in this work can exist elsewhere, but whatever is not in this work can never exist anywhere in this world. That is a very bold statement. And to be frank, he has included very niche things that people did not think about. Like Drona was a test tube baby, and the concept of test tube baby was never there in those times. So all those small things that we come across today have already been stated in Mahabharata. And while Ramayana is a very ideal story, Rama was a very devoted man. He was a very religious and righteous person. And he did whatever. His father asked him to go to the forest. Yes, he went. Then he finished. He had to kill Ravana. He killed. He came back. It is a very linear and ideal society. But in Mahabharata, Vyasa brings in all those things that we see today. Corruption, sexual harassment, all those things that we see today. Vyasa has included all those to tell that the world is no longer ideal like it's stated in Ramayana. By the time Mahabharata started, already the world is not ideal and we can see all sorts of good and bad things in this world. So Vyasa is one of those great people who was visionary enough to present all of them. Coming to this person's favorite number, Vyasa's favorite number, 18. And while Valmiki sprinkled 18 in some places, Vyasa boldly told at various places why he likes 18. There are 18 parvas of cantos in Mahabharata. Jaya is a name given to Mahabharata. It's an alternate name to Mahabharata. And if you do the Katapayadi Sankhya, again, you have 1 and 8, which forms 18. 18 days of battle. The battle of Kurukshetra happened for 18 days. And there are 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of Mahabharata. Finally, there were 18 battalions that fought in the actual battle of Kurukshetra. In the beginning, there were 18 battalions of armies. Now, this battalion is called an Akshauhini in Sanskrit. He goes one step further, and this is how he defines. So, according to the description of Ramayana, one chariot, 3 horses, like one chariot drawn by 3 horses, 1 elephant, and 4 soldiers form a small group of the army called Patti. So this is similar to infantry, cavalry, elephantry, and artillery. These were the 4. That's why you have Chaduranga. 4 different armies coming together is called Chaduranga. So this is called Patti. He has to, again, what you have to remember is Mahabharata was not like Vyasa sitting, thinking for 2 years and writing 1 shloka. He had to, if you remember the story of how Mahabharata was written, Vyasa had to continuously keep telling Mahabharata and Ganesha had to continuously keep writing. There was no point where he could stop. That was the condition that Ganesha had, that when I start writing, I will not stop. If you stop, I am leaving. So Vyasa had to, compose these verses in the mind and keep on continuously telling them. Even in the midst of that, very critical situation, he came up with this number. He told 21,817 pattis make one Akshauhini. Now, if you go back and calculate the number of chariots, charioteer, warrior, horses, elephants, soldiers, these were the totals that you get for 18 Akshauhinis of battle. And if you add all of those, you get 18. 10 plus 7 plus 1 is 18. So if you add all of them, it is 18. So even during that time when he was composing it, instantaneously, he made sure that they all add up to 18. So this is another indication of the caliber of those poets at that point of time. There were very innumerable number of poets, but my favorite again is always Kalidasa, and that's why whenever I talk about poetry, he is the first person who comes to mind. And it is also told that when the gods sat down to count the number of great poets in this world, they first counted Kalidasa. So this finger is called Anamika. So they counted Kalidasa, and till now they're still waiting for the next finger, is what they say. So even the gods consider Kalidasa known to be that poet who is worthy of being counted, and after that there were no more. So he is called Kavi Kulaguru. He is one of the greatest poets. He has composed a lot of works, Raghuvamsham, Kumar Sambhavam, Meghadutam. All these works are attributed to this great poet. Another important poet whom we have to talk about is Bhasa. He is a person who composed a lot of plays. And he is called Nataka Samraja Chakravarti. He is considered the greatest among the playwrights, and he has composed a lot of such natakas. And it is told that once the gods, again, all these stories try to bring out the greatest of these poets. So what happened is, the gods brought a huge collection of all the works that were ever composed, and they put the entire collection in fire. Everything burned except for the works of Bhasa is what they say. So even the fire was not able to engulf and burn the great works of Bhasa. So that is another beautiful thing to talk about Bhasa. And again, there were several poets, and going into the details itself is going to be a different endeavor. But here is another thing that I came across. We all know Euler, one of the greatest mathematicians during the 16th, 17th century. And he has, he is attributed for several of the things that we use today in mathematics. He came across a very unique problem. What he wanted to do was, there is a chessboard. You have one knight. The knight has to traverse the entire chessboard in the way that it moves. One right, three forward, or whatever is the L-shaped pattern that it follows. But it has to cover every square of the chessboard, but only once. Every piece, every square has to be traversed only once. So this is called a knight stir, wherein the knight, starting from any position, moves to every square only once. But even Euler finally, in his last work that he wrote, mentioned that I was just able to propose this problem, but I was not able to find a solution to this problem. Later on, there were several mathematicians who proposed, and they have solved this knight stir. And some of these works, like some of these solutions, exist like this. So there are multiple ways by which you can solve the knight stir. And now even neural networks have been used to even go up to like 32 by 32 squares and solve the knight stir. And it is told that there are thousands of ways in which even a single chess board can be solved using knight stir. So the reason why I bring all this is, yes, you have computing power now to do all this. You have algorithms to do this. But back in the day, what did they do? Well, there was one sage called Swami Vedanta Deshika. The next few slides and next few topics will be dedicated to this great person. Who was he? He was a poet, and he was actually a polymath. He was like how Galileo had multiple things to his credit. He was a philosopher, he was a dietitian, he was a poet, he was a acharya, he was a grammarian, he was a mathematician. So he was a polymath of great order, and he lived during the 6th and 7th century. That is way before Euler proposed this problem. So what happened here was, he was a poet, as I told you, and his magnum opus, his most famous work, is called Paduka Sahasram. It is a 1008 verse composition which was composed in one night. He was challenged by another poet to compose a work of 1000 shlokas in one day, but he put a challenge to himself and did it in one night. The beauty of this composition is the topic that he chose. We all have read Ramayana. There is a very small incident where Bharata comes and he takes the Paduka from Rama and he goes. That is a very small incident where you don't think about it, it's just like a passing event. This person took that sandals, the Paduka of Rama, as the inspiration, and he wrote 1008 shlokas on the sandals of Rama. He took such a very small topic and elaborated it in such a huge manner, and he didn't just compose 1008 works. As we'll see in the next few slides, he has included so many interesting aspects in this composition. Now coming back to this knight stir that we started off, the problem that I proposed. He wrote two verses like this. These were the two verses. I won't go into the meaning. Again, all these verses have meaning. They're not just random letters that are put in some sequence. They all have meanings. But these were the two shlokas that I'm using for this particular example. Now let us take the first two lines of this verse and let us put it into a 4x8 grid. So just I've continuously started putting the letters in these squares, and I've created this 4x8 grid. Now we have the next two lines. Now let us take the next two lines. So this grid is formed using the first two lines. Now you have the second two lines. Let us put the knight at the very first square and now follow the letters of the second two lines. So what it indicates is the second two lines and the first two lines have the same letters but arranged in different formats. But if you actually follow the knight and move the knight to the letters that are in this verse, you can see that it will follow the pattern of a horse. Skita, Samaya, Ra. So it will follow like the letters of the second verse, and it will complete the knight's stroke for half of the chessboard. completed this, all you have to do is put another 8 cross 32, and the next move will be to the first 5 cross 1 position. And if you continue this, you'll complete the entire knight's tour with just 2 shlokas. And this was composed in the 6th and 7th century. So this is called Chaturanga Turanga Paddhati. Again, Chaturanga is the game of chess. Turanga is a horse, which is a knight. So the Paddhati. So he created a concept called Chitra Paddhati, which is he'll create the poems in such a way that you can actually form various patterns. A very close correlation in English is something called an acrostic poetry. If you read this entire poem about Elizabeth and you take the first letters of all these lines, it again spells out Elizabeth. So this is like a very similar thing, but what Vedanta Deshika did was take this to the next level. And this is called Chitra Paddhati. For example, again, these were not something that were rendered later on by people who came after. In that night where he composed those 1008 shlokas, he actually drew all these by hand and composed shlokas. So how you read it is, you start, again, I won't read it, but all you have to do is go follow the path that the red line is taking, and it will form a shloka. This is called, so that is a Padma Paddhati, this is called a Chakra Paddhati, which is like a wheel with spokes, and you have to just go along the spokes, and these 4 lines will form the 4 lines of the shloka. This is another pattern called the weave pattern, wherein the alternate lines have the same alternate letters. So if you take the first and third line and write it one below the other, the alternate letters will be the same. Va, swa, nu, nu. So all those alternate letters will be the same. So you can form a weave pattern with this composition. He takes it to another level where, again, that is the line that he gives. I have divided it again into 4 cross 8, and then I have written it in the reverse order. Again, I didn't write it, but I have shown it here. So these 4 lines are the shloka. The last 4 lines are the reverse. So if you read it backwards, that is the shloka. And the beauty is, take any of those lines. The first column, first row, last column, last row. They read the first line. The first part, first half of the first line. If you take the second row, second column, last but one row, last but one column, you'll read the second section. And if you do that entirely, you can get all the 4 sections of the 2 lines in this way. It's a symmetry pattern. He takes it to another level where he just uses 2 letters, pa and the, to create another. Padapa, 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 padapa. Again, they are not just random letters. Padapa is called the root, something that brings from the root, which is a tree. Padapa also means a footwear. So, beautifully using the concept of the Samskrita Bhasha, the Sandhis, he has created a shloka with just 2 letters. Can he do better? Before we do that, let us just take some time. Hopefully people have seen the reason why I bring this up is he composed this shloka. Just 1 letter, yeah. And again, you may feel that this is gibberish. That's why I even wrote the meaning that it states. Depending on how you split the sandhis and the different meanings for the same word, this is the meaning. So it's all, again, everything is related to that sandals of Rama or Ranganatha, but just 1 letter. This is called Ekaswara Paddhati, where he has just used 1 letter to compose the entire shloka. So this is the greatness of Vedanta Deshika. The last one about Vedanta Deshika is this shloka, where it is a palindrome. The first and the second line are palindromes to itself. So if the first half is one palindrome to the second half, and the third half is the palindrome to the fourth half. So who can think about creating such an interesting work in just one night, that 1008 verses long? So we all discuss about Valmiki, Vyasa, Kalidasa. Correct, true. Again, as I told you, Kalidasa is my favorite poet as well. But when I came across this great man who composed something like this, I thought that, okay, it is better to tell something that is new to me and proudly to the others as well, and give credit to this person who deserves it so much. Now, there is a concept called, since we spoke about palindromes, there is a concept of palindrome and something called semord-melap. Very unique way of English. Palindrome is semord-melap, whatever it is called. So, again, these are some of the examples for palindrome that we usually see in English. There is one particular work by Lawrence Levy, which is a 31,000 word novel, which is a palindrome both ways. But the poet and the critics themselves, they say that it was just a random effort to make it a palindrome, but it does not have any meaning if you read the entire work. Now, again, that is like, if you read it one way, it is one word, if you read it the other way, it is another word. But can Sanskritam do better? Of course it can. Venkatadhwari Kavi, he was a student of Vedanta Deshika, so of course you can't expect anything less from this poet. He wrote a work called Raghava Yadaviyam, which is like a 30 shloka work, like it has 30 shlokas. If you read each shloka from starting to the end, it talks about Rama. If you read it backwards, it talks about Krishna. Again, I don't know if he composed it overnight, but still that is an achievement well to be praised. So rather than giving some random names like that, in Sanskritam it is called Anuloma and Pratiloma. Anuloma is forward reading and Pratiloma is backward reading. I'll give you one shloka that is mentioned here. Vandeham Devam Tam Shritam Vrintaram Kalam Bhasayah. If you read it this way, it is talking about Rama. But now if you read it the other way, Sevadhyayo, okay, you can Sevadhyaye, Sevadhyayo. If you read it backwards, that is about Krishna. That is such a unique way, like that requires so much of knowledge, because you have to use the same words but mean about two different people altogether. And there are 30 such verses in this work. So a very interesting work again called Raghava Yadaviyam, where the caliber of the poet is again shown. Lipogram. This is another kind of poetry where you strategically and systematically let go of some or omit some letters. This work called Gatsby omits E. There is no word in this entire work with the letter E. But why did the poet do it? The poet just wanted a challenge. But can Sanskritam do better? Let us see. Now, whenever we have a cold, what is the most difficult things to pronounce? What are the letters that are difficult to pronounce? Nasal. You can't pronounce any of those letters correctly. Is there any character in our itihasas who had the bad fate of not having a nose?
Shurpanakha.
Excellent, Shurpanakha. So, Shurpanakha did not have a nose after a point of time in the story because Lakshmana had to cut it off. And again, here is another interesting. Whenever I heard the word Shurpanakha, I always thought Shurpa is very close to sharp, so it should be sharp nails. But turns out Shurpa is like the willow that you use to separate the grain. So it's actually a broader nail. So a nail that is broad is called Shurpanakha, not a sharp. Just something that I wanted to point out. So there is this poet called Narayana Bhatta. He wrote a Niranunasika Prabandha, non-nasal work. There are no use of any none of those nasal words. And it's called Shurpanakha Pralapa. So once Lakshmana cuts the nose of Shurpanakha, she comes back and tells her plight that Rama and Lakshmana, they did this to me, go fight with them. So in order to tell that, whatever she tells to her brothers Hara and Dushana, that entire work is written in Shurpanakha Pralapa, the wailing of Shurpanakha, where none of these letters are used. And to give you an example, this is the shloka, like one of the shlokas, where if you will see this, there is no use of any anunasikas. Again, it does not end here, but again, there is very limited time, so I will just shift my gears to something more that I want to talk about, which is music. Till this point, we spoke about poetry. Music, we have very great poets, the trinity of Carnatic music. Again, interesting thing. It is not Karnataka Sangeeta, which I came to realize, it is Karnataka Sangeeta. Karnataka Sangeeta, Karna-ata is one that resides and dwells in your ear, is Karnataka Sangeeta. But since a lot of singers who came in this field are from Karnataka and that Prantya, it again became common to call it Karnataka Sangeeta, but it is actually Karnataka Sangeeta according to what I came across. The trinity of Karnataka Sangeeta, Tyagaraja, Shyama Shastri and Muthuswami Dikshita, they have all composed. The very famous Pancharatna Kriti, Jagadananda Karaka, is in Sanskritam. Himagiri Sute Mampahi, a very famous composition of Shyama Shastri, is again in Sanskritam. Interesting thing, while most of us respect Tyagaraja, most of us love Muthuswami Dikshita. It is like we respect Rama but we love Krishna. So, Muthuswami Dikshita has a larger fan following compared to Tyagaraja, but Tyagaraja is more revered. And the beauty is Muthuswami Dikshita's every composition is in Sanskrit. There are so many beautiful compositions. Anandanatana Prakasha, Rangapura Vihara, so many very famous works that we hear are all by Muthuswami Dikshita. While those are very famous, I wanted to highlight some of the other poets who are also worth mentioning and who have also given very beautiful works. Sadashiva Brahmendra, a very famous poet who a composer who gave Tibare Ramarasa, a very famous work that we have all heard, is given by Sadashiva Brahmendra. Jayadeva, one of my guru's favorite poet, she is even given the name Jayadeva Shrivani because she extols and sings his compositions in every place possible. He wrote a very different composition, which is the story, the romantic story between Radha and Krishna. No other language, no other probably part of the world encourages people talking about the romantic aspect of gods, but in our Sanskritam, he has been credited for writing something called Gita Govindam, wherein he has described the romantic love story of Radha and Krishna. A very famous poet from Odisha. Narayana Tirtha, a very famous person who has written Krishna Leela Tarangini, a story of Lord Krishna, and Swati Tirunal. Well, all these were either poets or sages. Swati Tirunal was a king. He ruled a small province in the current Kerala state, and he has written several beautiful works. The most famous being Gopala. I forget the name, but okay. He has composed several works in Sanskritam and Malayalam, but he is a king who has given these beautiful works. Bhavayami Gopala, yes, that is the composition. We finished poetry, we finished Sahityam. The last part is the Shloka Sahityam, where we see great stalwarts like Shankaracharya, Vedanta Deshika, Narayana Bhattatri, and Appaya Dikshita who have composed shlokas, not just poems, shlokas which follow chandas and formats. And they are all different great people whom also we have to think about. The last part of this is Subhashitam, which is like the advices, the good words that we come across, like the proverbs, Paropakara, Pridam Shariram, Sangye Shakti, unity, strength. All these are things taken from like Panchantantram or Hitopadesham, which tell some good advice to people. As I've told before, there are several works in Sanskritam which talk about mathematics like Aryabhatiyam, Leelavati, Bhaskaracharya. There are works in astronomy like Panchangam, which we use on a daily basis. Aryabhatiyam also has parts of astrology in it. In terms of health and medicine, Charaka and Charaka Samhita are very famous, Shushruta Samhita is famous, and Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are also very prominent. This is a very interesting thing that I came across. The current day embryology, modern day embryology is very well progressed, and it can tell you the progress of the embryo during the development to a very precise detail. Way back during the Mahabharata time, a sage called Kapila Muni in Bhagavatam has given very close details. Again, they may not match exactly, but the very close details of when the progress, how the progress happens, when the limbs are formed, when the hair grows, when the sense organs are developed. He gives it in that detail, which is very close to what the current day embryology also mentions, which is astonishing with considering that there was not that much progress in the field of medicine. Politics and administration, we have Manusmriti, we have Arthashastra, Viduraniti, and again, the contributions to Sanskritam are immense, but finally it comes down to Samskriti. Matadevo Bhava, Pitradevo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atiti Devo Bhava. All these, instructions, advices that are coming to us in the form of culture and heritage are all because of Sanskritam, and it's a good initiative to celebrate Samskriта Jayanti, but it's also good if we can, if not learn, read most of these works and try to, keep this language thriving. So, as a final, so this kind of concludes my talk, but as a last activity, I would encourage you people to, involve in this. It is called Antyakshari. We have always played Antyakshari in our schools, but mainly with movie songs. But I want to do something called a Shloka Antyakshari, which we conduct a lot back in Bengaluru in Katapayadi Sankhya, wherein I say a shloka and you take the last letter of the shloka and tell another shloka. So I hope you will all involve in it, and at least a few rounds is also all that I care about. So hope we can do that. So either you can take the same shloka and start, or we can start with a different shloka of your choice. So we can create two teams just for the sake of the game, and we can play this. Do you want to start? We'll just have like 2-3 rounds and then we'll conclude this. I think we'll start from here. We have some people who know. Tvameva Mata Shapita Tvameva, Tvameva Bundhishta Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vidyadhara Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva.
Karatunta Mahakaya, Surikoti Samaprabha, Vignam Rume Deva, Sarvakaleshu Sarvada.
Sarvada, the. Okay, I can give you a different letter from
Deepam Jyoti Parabrahma, Deepam Jyoti Paranana, Deepena Sadhyate Sarvam, Deepam
Deepa Jyotir Namoste.
Deepam Jyoti Namoste.
Namoste. Ta. Yamamrita. Ta. Tam tatha kripaya vishtam. Bhagavad-gita. Tam tatha kripaya vishtam.
Ashtu Purna Pule.
Vishitantam idam vachyam vacham Madhusudanaha. Na?
Idam Vacham Vacham Madhusudanaha.
Namostu. Mahalakshmi Namostute. Again, ta. So again, this is what we
concede.
Sorry?
We concede.
So this is what we usually play, even in Bengaluru when we meet. So this is like our regular activity at the end of every event where we have this going on for like half an hour. We keep the channel. It is again a way to learn shlokas and memorize them. So yeah, so thank you all for coming here, and I'll conclude this by saying that it was a very it's not like a thing that I was very adamant about, but something that I wanted to present because I had some very limited knowledge of Sanskritam, so I thought that I thought it was necessary for me to tell what I had and listen to whatever you wanted to say. So this was just my very humble presentation of whatever I know, and hopefully you got to learn something from this and take something back. So with that, I conclude this, and if you have any suggestions, questions, we can discuss that later. So, Ram Ram Ram. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, kale varshatu parjanyah, prithvi sasyashalini, deshoyam shobharahitah, brahmanas santu nirbhayah, swasti prajabhya paripalayantam, nyayena margena mahim mahishaah, वो ब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति